If you have felt that 2026 is halfway over and you're already feeling like you're behind on your goals or things that you cared about, this episode is going to be for you. Because today we're going to be not only doing a quarter 3 reset, we're not going to be doing it the normal, usual way where we pull out our giant checklist, we have our planners, or a good pep talk about getting your life together, because we are so good at giving ourselves our to-do list and telling us what we're not doing well, right? But today I do want to be open and honest, and I want us to talk about another way that could be beneficial when we feel stuck. Because you look at goals and you write them down at the beginning of the year, and instead of feeling motivated at this point in time in July, sometimes we feel behind, right? We feel disappointed, or even personally, I can say that I feel a little embarrassed because I really did mean it this time. I really meant that 2026 would be the year that I would do a certain thing, right? And now it's July and those dreams are still there, and I feel a little fuzzy about them. And there's a lot of people out there who can help you through like your mindset and thought work. There are other ways to get to this end result, but I want to approach it a different way, because yes, our mindset does matter, but sometimes when we're in this stuck, disappointed place, we're too tired, too foggy, too discouraged, right? We're so used to taking care of everyone else that it's really hard to stop and just identify a thought that could be keeping you stuck, right? And so sometimes you just need the energy to even do that work. And so today I want to give you something different. And I'm going to be showing you how to use one simple AI prompt to create a magazine cover style vision board of yourself at the end of 2026, already living in those dreams and goals that you care about. Because sometimes you need to see where you're going before you know how to take the next step. You have to look at the map and you know where you're at. You just know you want to be somewhere else. And so this is kind of going to help you put that goal in the map. But by the end of this episode, you're going to understand how to use this future reset to get clarity for that quarter 3 reset, to reconnect with the woman that you're becoming and choose one practical step that your future self is going to thank you for. And I will give you the exact prompt inside of the Facebook group in the worksheet. So you don't have to worry about figuring out how to create it yourself. But the idea for all of this came to me while I was reading about Thomas this week in the Bible. And I have to tell you, I kind of felt compassion for him this time. I know most of us, we know him as Doubting Thomas. If you're familiar with the story, I started thinking about what he had just lived through, because Thomas had followed Jesus, right? He had walked with him. He had listened to him teach. He had watched miracles happen right in front of his face. And then he watched everything fall apart. Jesus had been crucified. The one he had put all of his hope and all of his time and energy into was gone. And now the disciples are telling him, we've seen him. He's alive. But Thomas says, unless I see those nail marks in his hands and be able to put my finger where those nails were, I'm not going to believe. Okay, so he was being raw and honest. And I know that Jesus later does say, blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. But something really stood out to me this time, because Jesus, he still didn't rebuke Thomas. He came up close to him, right? He didn't just roll his eyes at Thomas or shame him. He invited Thomas to come and see. And that part stayed with me this time, because I thought about how many women are trying to reset their year, their health, their confidence, their calling, the dreams, right? But they feel like Thomas in that room. I know I've been there. It's like you sit there and you're tired of hoping, running in circles, not seeing the end result that we've been working on for years. And many of us, we've prayed, we've started over, we've written the goals, we've done the thought work, we bought the planner, right? And so you get there at January and you're like, this is going to be my year, as if you could willpower yourself to that end result. And so you get to halfway through the 2026, and you're looking at those dreams that you have cared and worked on for so long. You've invested a lot of time and energy, and now you're feeling foggy about them again. And so when you feel disappointed, you need someone who is going to be able to be there sometimes beyond just saying, just do the mindset work, right? That'll help you believe. So that's what I want to do, because sometimes you need something you can see, right? Something you can put your fingers in and touch. And so I'm not trying to replace faith, because that would be the ideal way, right? Jesus said that. But a visual reminder can help your heart wake back up again. And that is what gave me this idea for this type of reset, this type of vision board. And so what if, instead of starting Q3 by staring at everything that we have not done yet, we started by getting a picture of the woman we're becoming, the woman that we will be at the end of this? What if we could meet our future self, our end of 2026 self? And you've heard that saying before, your future self is going to love you for what you did today, right? And it's so true, but it still feels disconnected from who you are today. So what if we could meet her and we could see her on that magazine cover as a visual anchor for what it looks like to steward those dreams, those goals, and those assignments? And so it became a reminder for me when I created mine to help ask better questions. If this is the woman I'm becoming, what is one step I can take in Q3 to get myself there? Right. And so we're going to go ahead and walk through a framework of what it actually means to work your goals from that end in mind, with that vision board of yourself, your future you, and meeting her. Because this is where a lot of us do, I think, get tangled up. We think the goal is the result. And that could look like different things for different people. Like for me, it's publishing my book. For some people, it could be losing the weight, launching the business, cleaning out a closet or bedroom, restoring a relationship. And so that can look different for a lot of people. And all of those things matter. But if you only look at the result, you end up missing the deeper invitation here. Because working from the end in mind not only asks you, what do I want to accomplish by the end of the year, but it also asks, like, what kind of woman lives at the end of the year, right? What do I have to do to practice to become her? And how can I protect the things that matter to her? That kind of thing. Like, what does she believe? And that is why this future her reset is so helpful, because it helps you kind of have a conversation with that future self. So when you create your magazine cover vision board, I don't want you to only look at that finished dream. I want you to look at the woman in the picture, right? Ask yourself, like, what does she believe that I keep forgetting? What did she finally stop postponing? I've done a lot of postponing in my lifetime, still am, right? What did she start taking seriously that she hasn't in the past? Or what did she have to let go and release to create space for this thing, right? What did she have to practice when nobody was there to cheer her on? That one is a hard one. And then what did she have to stop apologizing for wanting? That is where this restart starts to get real and separates us from normal vision boards or normal mindset work to get ourselves over that finish line. Because fantasy thoughts would have us say, wouldn't that be nice, right? To get to the end. And then you start kind of thinking thoughts like, when this happens, I'll this. When this happens, I'll that. But vision, it says, what needs to change today? Vision gives you the direction. It gives you the next step. It allows you to see something that your current self is not able to see yet. So when you're working from the end in mind, you're not trying to force yourself into that perfect future. You're letting that future version of you remind you, your current self, what matters and what should matter today, right? Because the woman you're in your future has a different rhythm. So I don't want us to look at, what do I need to fix to get myself through this Q3, but what woman do I need to become to be able to do that next thing? And it might look like taking a walk today, or saying no to something, or setting an appointment you might have been holding off, or writing 20 minutes, right? You don't have to write the whole book and publish it today. You just have to write 20 minutes. So what does my future self need me to do today? So I'm getting closer to publishing my book, but this is the type of question I would have been asking myself when I was looking at the future of what felt impossible to get to that publishing a book. And so I love how this makes this quarterly reset feel more powerful. And so suddenly we're not looking at July, August, and September. We're looking at a bridge that between the woman who's stuck and the woman who is learning to show up in a different way. And that is built by just one little practice at a time. So, what if this quarter three reset is less about controlling the next 3 months, the next 90 days, and more about the becoming? And who do you want to steward? What has your heart been asking God for? Because when you ask those questions, instead of looking at the task that needs to be done, the natural mindset work happens. You're talking with God about the path He wants to take you on through this. And so we're moving from chasing the result to becoming the woman who can carry that result, right? Because all the things that we're carrying, the importance of the book, the business, the body, our confidence, our health, the calling, all of those things, they don't need just a better plan. Which, like I said, I love a planner. That's one of my favorite things on the planet, is to be a good planner. But they need more than a plan. They need a woman and a version of you who can walk out that plan. And here's the good news. That woman does not need to be flawless. She just needs to be surrendered, honest, faithful to say yes when the Lord is asking you to take a step, right? You're just participating in the practice of each step it takes to get there. So this is a return to vision, a return to stewardship, and the woman that He is forming in you, rather than the chasing after the result. And I know that's not glamorous. So I hope you'll at least feel excited about the AI prompt here. But I do want to make this practical. Before you go create your future Her magazine cover, I want you to pause and ask one question of yourself. What still matters? And this is an important question to ask when you're halfway through the year, because you have half the time than you did in January to get these results. And in a previous episode, I talked about scheduling quarterly emails, and I'll try to put that in the show notes so that you're able to kind of go back and watch that one. But I have a habit in January when I'm setting these goals. I schedule a quarterly email to myself for each quarter. And this one landed this morning. And it's one of my favorite practices of just my past me checking in with my current me. And I received that email, and there were goals in that email from January that I had completely forgotten about, sadly, right? So now I get to ask myself, is this something I still feel called to steward in 2026? It doesn't mean that I don't plan on making it happen. It just, is it for the now? Or is this something I need to adjust and release because this season has shifted? Things have happened in my life since January that no longer now require that or create the space for that. And so this is the first question I would ask yourself. It's very important because it helps you dial in and focus where you're trying to go. And when you're working with the end in mind, it doesn't mean that you're dragging every January goal into December just because you wrote it down. It means being honest enough to ask what still belongs in this season. And it can be emotional to have to let something go that mattered so much only 6 months ago. So I totally am recognizing that. But before you go and create your image, I want you to take a few minutes to kind of look back at what you wanted to do at the beginning of the year, and then choose one goal or dream that still matters. Make it small enough to start, clear action that you can measure, right? So instead of saying, I want to get healthy, say, I want to walk for 20 minutes, 4 days a week at lunchtime, right? Not just, I want to write a book, I want to write 20 minutes after breakfast every day. And then bring those goals into that prompt, because there's going to be a section for you to put 4 of those goals or intentions into that AI prompt. Because you're not asking the AI to make something just random and pretty, even though it is fun to look at magazine covers. I don't know why we as women, we're just drawn to that. We're drawn to pretty things, right? But you're bringing in your dreams, like the direction and the woman you're becoming. The headline will be asking you to enter something that you had to become to get there. So I was like, I needed to become more bold. I needed to become more flexible. So that's what you'll be putting into that prompt. And so when you get to see this image, even though I put the words into the prompt myself, it still had a landing that made me just sit in awe for a moment. Like, I was seen, I was heard. The Lord really is moving on this, right? It reminds you of those faithful steps. They matter. So here's what I want you to do next. Go into the Facebook group, grab the Future Her reset prompt, upload a photo of yourself, add the dreams and goals that still matter for the rest of 2026, and create that magazine cover vision board where you get to see and meet your future you. Because you're not just cutting out magazine pictures of, let's say I was saying I want to do mountain biking, right? So I would have in the past gone and cut pictures off the internet or in a magazine of someone else doing it. But this is you looking at yourself as if that person had already achieved the dream. And that does something in your mind, just like Thomas was able to see the nail holes and then he believed. And so sometimes we need to have that seeing to believe, right? And then when you do this prompt, if you share it on social media, I would love for you to point them into what we're doing here. Send it to another woman who needs what you're doing. Because sometimes we need women around us who can look at the dream with us and say, yes, keep going. I see that in you. So please post it in the Facebook group. Because when you do that, you get to have a cheerleader army behind you. You're not alone. You're not doing this by yourself, right? And we get to remind you of who you are on the days you forget. And that's so important. And so that leads us perfectly into what we'll be talking about next week, because once you know what still matters, the next question becomes, how do I actually make room for it in my life? The summer just kind of taking over, right? We have kids and grandkids visiting, travels, schedules end up shifting a little bit because the sun is up a little bit longer during the day. Meals can feel random, sleep gets a little weird, right? And so suddenly all of our rhythms that were helping us feel grounded before don't always fit in the season that we're actively living in. And so we're in quarter 3 and we're trying to get business started again. And so next week, we're going to be talking about how to reset your routines when summer disrupts everything. So this isn't going to be necessarily like rigid plans, but simple rhythms that help you stay steady in a way that you can get your life moving again. So grab the prompt for the Future Her magazine cover and then share it in the group. Share it with friends. Let us cheer you on. Receive the gift of being celebrated, right? And then come back next week because we're going to be talking about how to build the routines that support the woman you're becoming.